We've been living in this lie, this fostered lie for so long.
So because of the concept of gravity, and because of the concept of this event horizon, this super point of gravity, this infinite point that light can't even escape, that this exists because of the theory of gravity.
And their math. Remember, they have a thing called zero.
Terrence Howard just made a shocking revelation on the Joe Rogan Experience. Let's take a look.
They go from 1 to 0 to -1. There is no zero to even think zero.
So do you think that zero is a concept that came along with currency?
It should be attached to currency in that regard, because in physics, it's either nothing remains still. There's nothing still in the universe. There's nothing that doesn't have motion, because everything is connected. So if one thing is still, everything that's connected to it has to be still. There can never be one thing still. So as electricity tries to get to its balanced state, right when it gets there, magnetism takes over and it pushes over. So there's this pendulum, and as soon as it gets to this state, it bounces off that other noble gas, and it makes its way all the way back over here, and it's about to have equanimity, and then it gets pulled back into the other direction. And that's the breathing in and breathing out, and the pendulum effect that we've all observed in natural phenomena in the universe.
And that's a part of everything.
Everything behaves that way. Every one of our cells. Comes down to our cells are made up of water, mostly water, 80%, 90% water somewhere. Water is hydrogen. Hydrogen has 12 vortices that's behaving with it, 12 opposing vortices.
So what, in your model, what happens to these suns when they supernova?
Everything gets old and die.
Everything gets old and die. And does everything recompress?
It has to. And you breathe out, what happens to that air? Another plant breathes that air in.
So would this be the universe itself? Would it be galaxies? Would it be...
Everything behaves the same way.
So as the sun expands and projects and ejects particles, they expand, they go further and further from the sun, and at a certain point, they come back.
Well, at a certain point, what do they hit? There's other expanding stars and
so like waves colliding.
Yes,
and
from the other star systems. They have an expanding, what is the thing, the solar wind. They have expanding solar winds. Mm-hmm. So when they meet, our star meets the solar wind from another star at that end of that spot. Now there's two pressure conditions. So you have another Lagrange spot that's happening there. That's when those waves start coming back, but they get hit, and if they hit at 120 degrees, because that's how the universe is arranged, now these things become electric. So they, instead of coming from the planar side and expanding out at the equator, they now come back up from the northern and southern parts.
So does this account for stellar nurseries?
Yes. All of these things are just pressure conditions hitting each other. And they're causing that. That's where the Birkeland currents are running through, those higher electrical fields. But everything in the universe is just electricity. And we call it magnetism when it's devitalized, but it's still electricity. We call it the radiative side, it's the feminine side. And the contractive side is the positive, masculine side. It's a balance, and it's never been anything but that balance, and we've complicated it with a lie.
If you're right, so many people are wrong.
Everyone's wrong. Oh, well, the universe backs me up. And I have the proof of it. You have all these physicists that's saying something different, but none of them have 97 patents. None of them have introduced a new form of flight with unlimited mid-air bonding. None of them have discovered 4 supersymmetrical systems. This is what we've done. This is what the collective is able to do when you put yourself into the divine space. Because that spirit is waiting. It's just like, okay, are you going to make yourself available for it?
So let me ask you this. If I had a magic wand, and I allowed you to not just show this, but allowed all of these people that have these opposing ideas, you debate them, you duke it out, you emerge victorious, okay? With this magic wand, and now people go, just listen to Terrence. What do we do?
Well, then now we write new axioms and new postulates based off the real wave conjugations. Now we adjust our understanding of our physics to fit natural phenomena. And then we are in balance with it, and we have to let go of the idea of this currency. We're the only creatures in the known universe that uses currency, that uses an indirect form of payment instead of a direct exchange. We have to get past that point, and that's the hard thing, because this entire world is run on that, and that's where the 1 times 1 equaling 2 came into its real birth.
Well, the thing about currency is it's connected to technological innovation because of this unlimited potential for growth. And when you have an unlimited potential for growth, you have people that are extremely motivated to make massive amounts of money, and they innovate in a very high way, and then they also implement that innovation in the form of technology.
But their technology is antiquated compared to mine. There's no government on this planet that has the technology that I have or can outdo what I have, because you can't outdo the fractal.
How many people have you, I know you spoke at Oxford about this, but you didn't speak.
Yeah, they didn't. Oxford did something that broke my heart. 5 minutes before the presentation, they wouldn't allow me to have a screen and show my proof.
Why?
Oh, the computer was down. And I was like, well, you can use my computer. No, we have sensitive things attached to it. I just need the projector. I don't need anything else. Because they didn't want me to go and talk about this. And that's why I went out there and said, hey, pull out your calculator. I talked about acting for a couple of minutes, for 20 minutes. And then I was like, pull out your calculator. And I want you to enter the square root of 2 in there. And let's walk through this loop. That is the square root of 2. I was like, let's walk through this, where the square root of 2 cubed is the same value as the square root of 2 times 2. And then when you divide it by 2 and cube it again, you get back to you take the square root of 2, 1.414213562373095. You cube it, it's 2.828427121746190. Divide it by 2, it gets back to 1.414. Cube it again, is back to 2.828. Divided by 2, back to 1.414. Here we're taking 1, 2, 3 big steps. We're dividing it by 2, and we get back to the same value as we had in the very beginning. We've been living in this lie, this fostered lie, for so long.
And what's the solution to that?
The solution is learning how to multiply volumetrically, how the universe multiplies. And I've already produced all of these things.
Could you explain that, though, to the layperson? How does the universe multiply volumetrically as opposed to the way...
It does not move, does it linearly. It does not walk on. All of our math is based upon a two-dimensional projection. What they do in calculus, they will reduce the action of all things. They'll keep trying to reduce it down to one moment, because they believe Newton's first law, that everything moves in a straight line, or everything is still until acted upon. They forget that everything is in motion, and that concert of motion is a necessity. They have to include all the other forces involved in order to have equanimity in their equations.
And so how, in a practical sense, does this affect mathematics?
Well, once we let go of Cartesian space and the 90-degree angles, well, picture this. Let's take another practical place. Look at a computer chip. It has all of these 90-degree turns on it, typically, where they run the electricity. Can you imagine running at 186,624 miles a second in one direction, and you hit a wall, and you've got to stop, bounce off of that wall, and then you pick up your speed and you bounce off the next wall, and you bounce off the next and next and the next and the next. How much heat are you building up? How much friction is being built up from the interference in comparison to if it was just spherical, just going around? It would build up no heat. And if you allow it to be spiral, which my patent was talking about, that first patent was talking about, you're able to utilize all that energy, so you don't need the cooling systems. You don't need all of this loss or entropy. None of that occurs when you go by universal standards. That's all they have to do, is follow what the universe does. We have the contractive side, patented, ready and available. We have the expanded side, patented, worked out already, ready and available, and we've got the Constitution between the two of them.
But how does that affect, in a practical use, if you're using math on a calculator? What is wrong with what the calculator is saying?
The calculator right now is still saying that we're on a linear path, and it's just multiplying things in a compartmentalized space.
So by reductionist viewpoint, by breaking things down to simple numbers, that you really can't just do that.
You can try to do it, but it's like the piano. Remember the piano, the earlier pianos, they had, before they compartmentalized, and everything was, remember that everything in the universe expands as a sphere. Everything. Even music expands as a sphere. But what they did with the piano is they took all the 12 notes and then they just start them all over again instead of accounting for the expansion, that space. So you would never, if you're looking at the periodic table, you would never get to the titanium or to the rubidium or to the cesium, because they would all keep it with just the 7 tones. They don't allow for the necessary expansion, so you don't have all of these other isotopes to use, because they keep things here. You don't allow your child, nope, you're not going to get taller. I need you to stay just at 4 feet. That's the height. That's how high you can go. You will not be allowed to grow further. And we naturally keep growing and expanding out. So they have to allow that, but their math doesn't allow it because it believes in a 2-dimensional space. And remember, there are no 2-dimensional spaces, because in order for anything to be perceived, it has to be measurable. And measurable needs 3 dimensions, but it actually needs 4. It needs your perspective. You are the 4th dimension, and that's what Walter Russell also talked about, that it was 4 things coming together. And that's what woke me back up, and I was like, 4 bubbles meeting. But he still believed in the idea of straight lines. He was still hemmed in by it. And he's right, there becomes a cube sphere. There comes a point where everything comes together. But even, hold on, I'm going to try and pull up.
Is it because that we can create straight lines that we get confused?
We can't create it, because even when you look at it under an electron microscope, you'll see all the little curved dots that make it up. There are no straight lines. Like if you look at this.
Right, even in a box.
If you looked at this, you'll say, oh, that's a square right there. Right in the middle.
Sure.
You'll see that square happening right there. But if you look at it from the side, from its real perspective, you see that it's not. The straight lines are an illusion. Again, we are being fooled by our senses, because there is no motion in the straight line. So all these homes that they're building, and they keep wondering, why do they keep blowing over? Why don't you make the homes look like a mushroom? Follow the curvature of nature, and you won't have to worry about rebuilding them in hurricane zones or in tornado zones. It'll go right over it. They don't make airplanes that's just a straight box. They've allowed it to be aerodynamic and curved. They moved away from the straight lines in that aspect. In boats, they don't have the Noah's Ark moving across like this. They don't do that. Like I said, no man would be attracted to a Cartesian woman, to a Euclidean woman. Something just straight like this. We need the curvature, like Alan Watts said. We need the wiggles. We like the wiggles attached to it.
Yeah, that makes sense about homes.
Why
does.
do they keep making them flat when, and they keep getting blown up? I don't know what the fuck.
Because they're easy to make.
They're easy to make, but it's easier to make the curved ones. It would be much simpler to do it, but all of our technology is built on these bricks of the platonic solid. So now we have new building materials with what I've introduced. Entirely new building materials that we can use that have proven, and it's super symmetrical. You want to know what my first patent was? The entire AR, VR world was built off of my first patent that was abandoned because I paid $260,000 for the worldwide patent. But then my agents kept, my lawyers kept sending me these maintenance fees and annuities. And I'm like, these folks are just trying to shake me down. I'm not going to pay this. Well, a year later, if you would pull up my World of Windows patent, I think it's one of the first patents up there. I want you to see where your AR, VR world came from. And you look at the list of companies that has cited, and didn't just cite it, they built their entire AR, VR world off of my World of Windows patent. Can you pull that up, Jamie? Of the computer. Yeah, it's the very, not that one, not that one, not that one. Yeah, that's the propulsion patent. No. That's all you have, huh? Really? if you can go to Terry's linchpin, I'll show you on here. This is what this is what we put together for.
Is that online?
This is online.
Text me that link and I'll just send it to him.
Yeah.
You got it?
You got it.
Okay.
So merging virtual reality. It says merging virtual reality with reality. Go down. Patents and files, the very first one. Tap on that. So you go and look over to, you'll see my name, inventor, Terrence Howard. Worldwide application. Let's just read the abstract just so they don't.
System and method for merging virtual reality and reality. Scroll it so I can see it. To provide an enhanced sensory experience. A system and method of merging virtual reality sensory detail from a remote site into a room environment at a local site. The system preferably includes at least one image server, a plurality of image collection devices, a display system comprising display devices, a control unit, digital processor, and a viewer position detector. The control unit preferably receives the viewer position information and transmits instructions to the digital processor. The digital processor preferably processes source data representing an aggregated field of view from the image capturing devices in accordance with the instructions received from the control unit, and outputs the refined data representing a desired display view to be displayed on one or more display devices, wherein the viewer position detector dynamically determines the position of the viewer in the room environment and changes the desired display view corresponding to position changes of the viewer.
Now you see it.
This is all you?
Yeah, this look at the inventor. Go up a little bit and slide over. It says Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
Worldwide patent, 2010. It was abandoned. Now go to cited by. You see that 131 cited by? Tap on there. It's right under where it says abandoned. Yep, patent
cited
citation.
By 31.
Cited by 31. It's to the right. Yep, right there. Tap on there and look at all the companies. And if you look at the patent, these companies have all earned, they have multi-billion-dollar companies they've built off of my patent. Just roll through.
Sony, Microsoft, Amazon.
Hewlett Packard.
Yeah.
Keep going. IBM, and it's still making money. This patent has earned over $7 trillion.
And you didn't get a piece.
And I haven't gotten a penny of it. When they did all of the Black Lives Matter, like Raytheon Company. And IBM, if you...
Crazy.
And it still has another 9 years. Another 8 years in which I would be making money off it. But what they didn't know is they didn't understand is how it was really supposed to work. So they've just been taking this gun and been using it as a bat. And if they wanted to know, I could show them how it really, really works. But this is proof that my stuff is legit.
So let me ask you this before we stray away from this too much. The concept of gravity. So if it's all electricity that's causing these forces and it's all outside in, when the Saturn V rocket is escaping Earth's atmosphere, what is it fighting against?
What that's fighting against is the rotation. Remember, there's a centripetal spin that's taking place with the Earth.
Right.
And there's an electrical field that's generated from that. That's that centripetal spin that holds things inside. Mm-hmm. That's what it's fighting against. That's that electric field.
And we're calling it gravity.
We're calling it gravity. But gravity is just the effect of the electric field, and the electric field is balanced by the radiative field.
And the more mass something has, the more it gets pulled.
The greater electric potential it has. You know,
so the more
the tighter
dense something
the waves
is, the
are.
heavier it is.
The waves are tighter.
Yes.
The electricity can now, it doesn't have to jump over anything. And as I showed you with some of the pieces, as long as they're close together, then you don't have the magnetic field that forms, that discharge, because they're able to stay northeasterly in their direction. They're not forced to go southwesterly and spin out. Either you're spinning to the right or spinning to the left. That's the only two directions in the universe. Spinning to the right is northeastern, and that's electric. If it's spinning to the left, it's magnetic, and it's expanding out. It contracts in fifths and expands in sixths. And so now what I would love to do is invite Neil deGrasse and David Tong, or any astrophysicist, any chemist, any anyone in any field of science to sit down with me and examine these patterns, examine the supersymmetrical systems that I've developed. But I want to show you linchpin now. Here I've invented, here I'm an Oscar-nominated actor that is known all around the world, face recognition, vocal recognition, all around the world. I've invented a new form of flight, tangential flight, the ability to fly around your own center of mass, something they've never been able to do. And you don't hear anything about it. And it's unlimited bonding. If you can go to what Jonathan Davis sent over, he's one of the other programmers that work with us.
Explain what it does? Explain, when you said flight, what do you mean?
Tangential flight.
What do you mean by that?
It means right now, fixed wing aircraft, you can go in 4 degrees of direction. They go up, down, some can go forwards and back, backwards and right to left. But this is able to spin around its own center of mass. Completely spin around its own center of mass, something people are able to do it by falling, but this is a sustained system.